Fooled my cheating wife into thinking I was cheating. She filed for divorce but got reality check when she walked away with nothing. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this story is wild. My wife spent months sneaking around behind my back, and when I figured it out, I didn't confront her. Instead, I made her think I was the cheater. She filed for divorce thinking she'd nail me to the wall and take everything. Spoiler alert, she walked away with absolutely nothing. Here's how it went down. I'm 35 male, started from nothing, worked at a dealership for 8 years, saved every dollar I could, then opened my own place 5 years ago. We specialize in heavy-duty trucks and commercial vehicles. Not flashy work, but it pays the bills and then some. The shop's got 4 bays, 3 full-time mechanics working for me, and a solid reputation with local trucking companies. My typical day starts around 6 a.m. I'm usually the first one at the shop, getting the coffee going and reviewing the day's schedule before the crew arrives. We work on everything from 18-wheelers to construction equipment. There's something satisfying about diagnosing a complex engine problem and fixing it properly. No shortcuts, no temporary patches, just solid work that keeps trucks on the road. The business model is straightforward but effective. We charge fair rates, do quality work, and build relationships with our clients. Most of our business comes from repeat customers and referrals. When a trucking company knows they can bring their entire fleet to one shop and get consistent, reliable service, they stick with you. That loyalty translates to steady income and growth. I've got a good crew too. 3 mechanics who've been with me for years, each with their own specialties. One guy is amazing with electrical systems. Another is a transmission wizard, and the third can diagnose engine problems just by listening to them run. We work well together. Minimal drama, everyone pulling their weight. That's rare in this industry, and I don't take it for granted. The business does well enough that I own my house outright. Bought it as a foreclosure 10 years ago for dirt cheap. Spent 3 years fixing it up myself on weekends. 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, decent yard. Nothing fancy, but it's paid off and worth about 3 times what I paid for it. I also own the building my shop operates out of, plus 2 rental properties I picked up during the housing crash. All purchased before I got married. All in my name only. My dad taught me early. Protect your assets. He lost everything in his divorce when I was 12. House, savings, even his truck. Had to start over from zero at 45 years old. That lesson stuck with me hard. When I started making real money, I kept everything separate and documented. Call it paranoid, but I call it smart. I met my wife Andrea, 32 female, 7 years ago at a friend's barbecue. She worked as a dental hygienist at a practice downtown, pretty, charming, had that girl next door vibe that sucked me in completely. She knew how to work a room, always had the right thing to say, made people feel special when she talked to them. That charm was intoxicating at first. Our first few dates were perfect. She seemed genuinely interested in my work, asked thoughtful questions about the shop, laughed at my jokes. We'd go to dinner, catch movies, take drives out to Red Rock Canyon on weekends. Normal dating stuff that felt easy and natural. She was attentive, responsive, made me feel like I was the most interesting guy she'd ever met. We dated for a year before I proposed. The proposal wasn't anything fancy. Took her to this overlooked spot outside the city where you could see the whole valley lit up at night. Had the ring in my pocket. Gave her this whole speech about building a future together. She cried, said yes immediately, called her mom before we even got back to the car. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags during our engagement. But when you're in it, you miss things. Or maybe you see them but convince yourself they're not important. The first red flag was how she reacted to my prenup requirement. When I told her we needed one before getting married, she threw a fit tears, accusations about not trusting her, threats to call off the wedding. Her mom got involved, calling me paranoid and controlling. We had multiple arguments about it, each one more heated than the last. If you loved me, you wouldn't need a prenup, she'd say, crying on the couch. If you love me, you'll understand why I need to protect what I built, I'd respond. The standoff lasted 3 weeks. Her family pressured me constantly. Her dad pulled me aside at a family dinner, told me I was being unreasonable, that real men don't make their future wives sign legal documents. Her sister called me at work to lecture me about trust and commitment. But I held firm. My assets before marriage stayed mine. Anything we built together would be split fairly. She eventually signed, but the resentment never really went away. I could see it in her eyes during the ceremony. This feeling that I'd forced her into something she didn't want should have been another warning sign. For the first few years, things were decent enough. We had our routines. I worked long hours at the shop. She had her dental practice schedule. We'd have dinner together most nights. Take a camping trip every summer to Lake Mead or up to Mount Charleston. Normal married life, or at least what I thought normal married life looked like. She'd pack lunches for me sometimes, those first couple years. Leave little notes in the bag with smiley faces and messages like, "Have a great day," or "Can't wait to see you tonight." Small gestures that made me think we were building something solid. We'd have friends over for barbecues on weekends. She was good at hosting, making sure everyone had drinks, keeping conversations flowing. People would tell me how lucky I was. What a great wife I had. I believed them because I wanted to believe them. She moved into my house, contributed to groceries and utilities, but never paid actual rent or mortgage since the house was already paid off. Andrea had expensive taste, though. Designer purses, salon appointments every other week, girls' trips to Las Vegas with her friends. I didn't mind at first. She worked. She could spend her money however she wanted. But gradually her spending outpaced her income. Credit cards got maxed out. Then she started asking me to cover her payments. I drew a line there, gave her money for essentials when she needed it, but I wasn't funding shopping sprees. That created tension. She'd make comments about me being cheap, about how other husbands treated their wives better. Her friend group didn't help. They were all married to guys in tech or finance, posting Instagram photos from expensive vacations and showing off jewelry. Andrea felt like she was missing out, and somehow that became my fault. The real trouble started about 8 months ago. Andrea's behavior changed in subtle ways. She started dressing nicer for work, taking extra time with her makeup, would spend 30 minutes in front of the mirror instead of her usual 10 new outfits appeared in her closet. Clothes I'd never seen before, still with tags on them, charged to credit cards I didn't monitor. She started going to the gym 5 days a week when she'd barely gone once a month before. Suddenly she was doing yoga classes, spin classes, personal training sessions. Her phone became her constant companion, always face down on the table, always on silent. She'd check it compulsively, dozens of times an hour, with this little smile that told me someone was making her happy. I'm not naturally suspicious, but patterns emerge when you pay attention. She started working late more often. At least, that's what she claimed. A dental hygienist working until 9 p.m. multiple nights a week? That didn't add up. Dental practices closed by 6 p.m. at the latest. When I'd ask about it, she'd get defensive, snap at me about not trusting her. "Why are you interrogating me? Don't you trust me?" she'd say, turning the question back on me. Classic deflection. When someone accuses you of not trusting them instead of just answering a simple question, that's usually because they're hiding something. I'd seen this pattern before with friends whose wives had cheated. The playbook is always the same. Then came the girls' nights. Suddenly, Andrea was going out every Friday. Sometimes Saturdays too. Always vague about where they were going. Sometimes it was drinks, sometimes dinner, sometimes a movie. But she'd come home after midnight, slightly disheveled, with stories that never quite added up. Just out for drinks. Or, dinner and maybe a movie, she'd say when I asked where she'd been. When I'd ask which friends, she'd list names. Jessica, Lauren, Brittany. But when I casually mentioned one of those friends to my buddy whose wife was supposedly there too, turns out that friend hadn't seen Andrea in months. The lies were getting sloppy, or maybe she just didn't care anymore if I caught on. The overnight trips were the real giveaway. 3 weekends in 2 months, Andrea had these sudden work conferences for continuing education credits. Dental hygienists do need continuing education, but 3 in 2 months seemed excessive. Plus, she'd come back from these trips looking refreshed and happy, in a way she never looked after being around me. I didn't panic or confront her. Instead, I did what I do with engines that aren't running right. I diagnosed the problem systematically, started paying attention to patterns, checked our cell phone bill online, and noticed a number she texted constantly. Hundreds of messages, many of them late at night. I didn't recognize the number. Her car gave me more clues. Andrea drove a Honda Accord I'd helped her buy 3 years ago. One Saturday, while she was at one of her mysterious girls' nights, I checked her car's navigation history, found addresses I didn't recognize, a condo complex across town, a restaurant in Henderson, a hotel near the airport. All places she'd been multiple times but never mentioned I could have hired someone to follow her, but that felt like overkill. The evidence was already clear. My wife was having an affair. The question wasn't if, but with who and for how long. More importantly, what was I going to do about it? Confronting her directly would have just led to denials and gaslighting. She'd cry, make excuses, maybe promise to work on our marriage. We'd do therapy where she'd play the victim, and eventually we'd end up divorced anyway, with her claiming I was controlling and suspicious. I'd seen that playbook before, with friends who'd been through it. So I decided on a different approach. If Andrea wanted to sneak around, fine, but I was going to make her think I was doing the same thing. I was going to make her believe I was cheating, Let her file for divorce thinking she'd catch me red-handed, and then reveal the truth when it was too late for her to back out. The plan required patience and careful execution. I started laying groundwork immediately. First, I created a fake affair. Not with a real person, obviously, but I needed Andrea to believe I was seeing someone. I started staying late at the shop more often, sending myself text messages from a burner phone I bought specifically for this purpose. Picked up a cheap prepaid phone from a convenience store, paid cash, registered under a fake name, messages that would pop up on my phone screen when Andrea was nearby. The messages had to be believable, but vague enough to let her imagination fill in the details. Had fun today. Can't wait to see you again. Thinking about you. Tonight was amazing. You looked beautiful in that dress. Simple, romantic messages that implied intimacy without being too explicit. I'd make sure to angle my phone away when these messages came in, but not too obviously. The goal was to make her curious, suspicious, let her draw her own conclusions. I'd glance at the message, smile slightly, then put my phone away without responding. Let her wonder who was making me smile like that. I also started paying more attention to my appearance. Hit the gym 5 days a week instead of my usual 3, bought some new clothes from places I normally wouldn't shop. Better jeans, fitted shirts, a nice jacket. Got a better haircut from an actual barber instead of the cheap chain place I usually went to. Lost about 15 pounds over 6 weeks through consistent workouts and better eating. Not because I was actually seeing anyone, but because I needed Andrea to think I was trying to look good for someone else. People having affairs make an effort with their appearance. It's one of the classic signs. They want to look attractive for their affair partner, want to feel desired, want to recapture that new relationship excitement. Started taking random phone calls in another room, speaking quietly. Most of the time, I was actually on the phone with my accountant or parts suppliers or clients, scheduling service appointments. But Andrea didn't know that I'd see a call come in, glance at Andrea, then walk to the garage or bedroom to take it. Stay in there for 10 or 15 minutes, speaking in low tones. Come back and she'd be watching me with this calculating look. "Who was that?" she'd ask, trying to sound casual. "Just work stuff," I'd respond vaguely. "At 8 p.m. on a Saturday? Trucking companies don't keep normal hours, you know that." She'd narrow her eyes but wouldn't push further. I could see her mental wheels turning, adding this to her growing list of suspicious behaviors. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. I didn't have to actually do anything wrong. I just had to create the appearance of wrongdoing and let Andrea's guilty conscience fill in the blanks. When you're cheating, you start seeing signs of cheating everywhere, even when they don't exist. It's projection. You assume everyone operates the way you do. Within 2 weeks, Andrea's behavior toward me shifted noticeably. She started asking pointed questions about my day, about why I was working late so much, about who I was texting. The accusations came with this edge of triumph, like she was happy to catch me doing what she'd been doing all along. "Who keeps texting you at night? Why do you need new clothes all of a sudden? What's so important at the shop that you're there until 9 p.m.? I played it casual, giving vague answers that neither confirmed nor denied anything. Let her imagination do the heavy lifting. My buddy Travis, who owns the auto parts store next to my shop, was the only person I told about my plan. He thought it was brilliant. "She's gonna hang herself with her own rope," he said, shaking his head. Travis had been through a nasty divorce himself, so he understood the game. Travis helped by being my alibi, without actually being my alibi. When Andrea would call the shop looking for me and I wasn't there, Travis would answer and say something like, "Oh, he left about an hour ago. Not sure where he went." Perfect, plausible deniability. The burner phone became my best friend. I'd text myself during dinner, excuse myself to take this call, then just stand in the garage for 5 minutes before coming back. Andrea's face during these moments was priceless. A mix of anger, suspicion, and something else. Satisfaction, maybe? Like she was building a case against me? One night, she tried to grab my phone while I was in the shower. I'd anticipated this and left it unlocked on purpose, but positioned the screen where I could see if it moved. Through the crack in the bathroom door, I watched her scrolling through messages. She found the texts from my burner number, read them, then carefully placed the phone back exactly where I'd left it. Gotcha. After that night, Andrea's behavior changed completely. She became almost sweet, helpful, attentive in ways she hadn't been in years, making my favorite meals, asking about my day with genuine interest, even suggesting we take a trip together, classic behavior of someone planning something. I knew exactly what she was planning. She was building her case, gathering evidence of my supposed affair, getting ready to file for divorce and claim infidelity. In Nevada, we're a no-fault divorce state, but proof of adultery could still impact asset division if one party was particularly egregious. She thought she had me dead to rights. Here's what Andrea didn't know. Everything I'd worked for was protected. The house I bought and paid off before we married, protected by the prenup. My shop and the building it's in, purchased before marriage, protected. The 2 rental properties, also purchased before marriage, protected. Our joint checking account had maybe $5,000 in it. My real money sat in accounts she didn't know about, accumulated from business profits over the years. The prenup was ironclad. My lawyer had made sure of it when we got married. Anything I brought into the marriage stayed mine. Anything we accumulated together would be split. Since Andrea hadn't contributed to any major purchases or investments, and since she was about to file for divorce claiming I was the one who violated our marriage vows, she had no legal leg to stand on. I called my lawyer, William, and laid out the situation. Told him about Andrea's affair, about my plan to make her think I was cheating, about what I expected to happen next. William was quiet for a moment, then started laughing. That's either brilliant or insane, possibly both. But from a legal standpoint, as long as you haven't actually committed adultery, you're in the clear. If she files claiming infidelity and can't prove it, while you can prove her actual infidelity, this is going to go very badly for her. That's the plan. Document everything every time she's lied about her whereabouts, every suspicious pattern, every piece of evidence you've gathered. When this goes to court, we want to show a clear pattern of deception on her part and innocence on yours. I'd already been documenting, had a folder on my computer with screenshots of phone records showing her calls and texts to that mystery number, had addresses from her car's navigation history, had credit card statements showing purchases at restaurants and hotels on days she'd claimed to be at work or with girlfriends. The evidence was overwhelming. The waiting game continued for another month. I kept up my fake affair performance, while Andrea kept up hers. We were 2 actors in a play, both pretending to be faithful while secretly believing the other was cheating. The difference was, my act was just that, an act. Hers was real. Travis would call me during this period just to check in. How's the performance going? She took the bait completely. I give it 2 more weeks before she makes her move. What if she doesn't? Then I'll force the issue. But my money says she can't wait much longer. She thinks she's got me cornered. I was right. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning, I got served divorce papers at the shop. The process server showed up around 10 a.m. while I was under a Peterbilt doing an oil change. Are you Anthony Hayes? I confirmed I was, and he handed me the envelope. You've been served. I took my time reading through the papers Andrea was filing for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences, but the attached declaration was full of accusations about my supposed infidelity. She claimed I'd been emotionally distant, working excessive hours, receiving suspicious phone calls, and showing signs of an affair. She was requesting half of all marital assets and spousal support. I couldn't help but smile. She'd walked right into it. Called William immediately. Just got served. Perfect. Are you ready to respond? Absolutely. Let's show her what real evidence looks like. My response to Andrea's divorce petition was filed within a week. Unlike her vague accusations, mine came with hard evidence phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between her and that mystery number, which William's paralegal had traced to a guy named Kyle, who worked in sales at a medical supply company. Kyle was married too, by the way. Andrea had been having an affair with a married man. We included printouts from her car's navigation showing repeated trips to Kyle's condo. The address appeared 17 times over 3 months. Credit card statements showing hotel rooms charged to her personal card on nights she'd claimed to be at conferences. The Marriott downtown, the Hilton near the airport, even a boutique hotel in Henderson. Hundreds of dollars per night, multiple nights per month. Found some Instagram photos she'd posted from one of her work trips that were geotagged at a resort in Scottsdale, a resort that was definitely not hosting any dental hygiene conferences that weekend. She'd posted pictures of fancy cocktails and sunset views, tagged the location for everyone to see. Never occurred to her that digital footprints last forever. We also found restaurant receipts, dinners for 2 at expensive steakhouses, Italian places, that fancy French restaurant downtown where entrees start at $50, all charged to her credit card, all on evenings she'd told me she was working late or out with girlfriends. The financial paper trail was overwhelming. The kicker was our request for Andrea to provide evidence of my supposed affair, bank statements showing any unusual purchases, phone records showing suspicious calls, hotel reservations, restaurant charges, anything concrete. We both knew she had nothing because nothing had happened. Those text messages she'd seen on my phone, from a burner I'd already destroyed that mystery person I was supposedly calling, didn't exist. Andrea's lawyer tried to claim I'd deleted evidence, that I'd been careful to cover my tracks, William shot that down immediately by providing my complete phone records from the carrier. All calls, all texts for the past year, showing no pattern of communication with anyone except known contacts like Travis, my employees, and parts suppliers. Every single call and text time-stamped and documented. No hidden numbers, no suspicious patterns, nothing. He also provided my credit card statements showing my spending patterns had remained consistent throughout the marriage. No hotel rooms, no expensive dinners, no suspicious purchases. Just shop supplies, groceries, gas, the same boring, predictable spending I'd always done. You can't prove something that never happened, William told the judge during our first hearing. Meanwhile, we have overwhelming evidence of Mrs. Hayes' actual affair with a married man named Kyle Peterson. If anyone's violated the terms of their marriage, it's her. We have phone records, navigation history, credit card statements, social media posts, a complete timeline of infidelity spanning at least 6 months, possibly longer. The look on Andrea's face when this came out in court was worth everything. Pure shock mixed with rage. She'd been so convinced she had me, so certain I was the one cheating, that the idea I might have been faithful while she wasn't had apparently never crossed her mind. Her lawyer tried to argue that I'd engaged in emotional manipulation by making her think I was unfaithful. The judge wasn't having it. Let me understand this correctly, the judge said, looking at Andrea's lawyer over his glasses. Your client committed adultery, documented her own affair through credit card receipts and cell phone records, then filed for divorce claiming her husband was unfaithful based on, what exactly? The fact that he worked long hours? That he bought new clothes? Andrea's lawyer stammered something about suspicious behavior, about how my actions suggested infidelity, even if no proof existed. Suspicion is not evidence, counselor. Meanwhile, we have concrete evidence of your client's affair. Let's move on to the asset division. This is where things got really satisfying. William walked the judge through the prenup, through documentation showing every major asset I owned had been purchased before marriage. The house, deed dated 4 years before we married, the shop building, purchased 3 years before marriage. The rental properties, both acquired during my bachelor days, using money I'd saved while working at the dealership. Andrea's lawyer tried to claim she'd contributed to these assets through her domestic labor and emotional support. The judge asked for documentation. They had none. No receipts showing she'd paid for major repairs or improvements. No evidence she'd contributed financially to anything except routine household expenses, which I'd also mostly covered since my income was higher. What about the appreciation in value? Her lawyer tried. These properties have increased significantly during the marriage. Mrs. Hayes is entitled to half of that increase. William was ready for this. Your Honor, the prenup specifically states that any appreciation of premarital assets remains the property of the owner. This is standard language in premarital agreements throughout Nevada. Mrs. Hayes' attorney reviewed this prenup before she signed it. She entered into this agreement voluntarily, with full knowledge of its terms. The judge reviewed the prenup carefully, then asked Andrea directly, Mrs. Hayes, did you understand what you were signing when you agreed to this prenuptial agreement? Andrea, probably on her lawyer's advice, tried to claim she'd been pressured, that she was young and didn't fully understand the implications the judge wasn't buying it. Mrs. Hayes, you were 25 years old, a licensed dental hygienist with a college education. The document clearly states in plain English that premarital assets remain separate property. Your signature is notarized, indicating you signed willingly. I'm denying your request to invalidate the prenup. Her face went white. That prenup was her only shot at getting anything significant, and it had just evaporated. The division of assets took about 15 minutes. The house, mine. The shop, mine. The rental properties, mine. The joint checking account with $5,000, we'd split it. Her car, which she'd paid off with her own money, hers. Her 401k from her dental practice job, hers, obviously. My retirement accounts from before marriage, mine. We'd accumulated essentially nothing of value together during the marriage except some furniture and basic household items. The judge ordered those split fairly, meaning I kept what I'd purchased before marriage. She kept what she'd purchased, and we'd figure out the rest ourselves. As for spousal support, denied. The judge noted that Andrea had a professional career earning decent money. She was perfectly capable of supporting herself. The fact that she'd been unfaithful didn't help her case either. Some judges don't care about infidelity in no-fault divorce states, but this particular judge clearly did. The whole process took 4 months from initial filing to final decree. Andrea fought every step of the way, but without evidence or legal standing, she had nothing to fight with. Her affair with Kyle became court record. Kyle's wife found out. I made sure she got copies of all the evidence because she deserved to know. Kyle apparently lost his job over it when his employer found out he'd been using company travel time for personal affairs. Andrea's friends and family tried to paint her as the victim, poor Andrea, manipulated by her cruel husband who made her think he was cheating just to, what exactly? Protect assets that were legally mine anyway? The logic didn't hold up, but people believe what they want to believe. Some mutual friends chose her side, which was fine with me. Anyone who heard the full story and still supported her wasn't someone I wanted in my life anyway. Real friends don't condone cheating, regardless of gender. The day our divorce was finalized, I felt nothing but relief. 7 years with someone who'd been lying to me for most of the last year. 7 years of building a life with someone who was willing to throw it away for a fair excitement. Good riddance. Andrea had to move out of my house within 30 days of the decree. She found an apartment across town, something she could afford on her hygienist salary without my income to supplement it. Heard through the grapevine that she was struggling with the adjustment. Turns out when you're used to living in a paid-off house with someone else covering most of the bills, reality hits hard when you're on your own. The apartment she found was in an older complex on the east side. 1 bedroom, maybe 700 square feet, with thin walls and a parking lot that flooded when it rained. Nothing like the house she'd been living in, rent-free for years. I heard from mutual friends that she was working extra shifts at the dental practice, trying to make ends meet, struggling to adjust to actually having to budget. Kyle never left his wife. Once Andrea was no longer forbidden fruit, once the affair was exposed and had real consequences, he decided his marriage was worth saving after all. Jennifer, his wife, took him back after months of marriage counseling and strict conditions. Andrea ended up alone, in a small apartment, working the same job, with nothing to show for her affair except a destroyed marriage and a reputation in ruins. The social fallout for Andrea was brutal. Her friend group mostly abandoned her once the details came out. Hard to maintain friendships when everyone knows you not only cheated on your husband, but did it with someone else's husband. The dental practice where she worked didn't fire her, but things got awkward. Co-workers who'd been friendly suddenly weren't. Professional relationships cooled noticeably. Her family was furious with her too. Her dad, who'd lectured me about trust and commitment before the wedding, called her stupid and selfish. Her mom stopped talking to her for 3 months. Her sister, who'd always been judgmental, had a field day pointing out Andrea's failures. The family dynamics she'd grown up with completely fractured. Kyle's career took a hit too. His employer didn't fire him, but he got demoted and lost his commission structure. The medical supply company he worked for valued their reputation, and having a sales rep who'd been caught in a very public affair was bad optics. He went from making 6 figures to barely breaking 80,000. His wife made sure everyone in their social circle knew what he'd done. Travis and I grabbed dinner about a week after everything was finalized. He raised his glass in a toast. To the greatest revenge plot I've ever seen. Making her think you were cheating, so she'd file for divorce, then proving she was the actual cheater. That's cold-blooded, man. She made her choices, I just helped her face the consequences faster. Still, though, she thought she was going to take you for everything. House, shop, half your rental income. Instead, she walked away with basically nothing. The prenup did the heavy lifting. I just made sure the truth came out at the right time. She thought she had me cornered, thought she could claim I was unfaithful, and use that to invalidate the prenup or get a better settlement. Instead, her own infidelity destroyed any leverage she might have had. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, watching sports highlights on the bar TV. Travis had been through his own divorce years ago, lost half of everything he'd worked for because he hadn't protected himself legally. He understood what I'd avoided. You know what the best part is? Travis said eventually. She did all of this to herself. You didn't force her to cheat. You didn't make her lie. You didn't push her to file for divorce with false accusations. She chose every step of this path, and when the consequences showed up, she had nobody to blame but herself. He was right. Every decision Andrea made was hers alone. The affair, the deception, the false accusations in her divorce filing, all her choices. I'd just been strategic about how I responded. Looking back 6 months later, I have zero regrets. My life is objectively better without Andrea. The house feels more like mine now. Rearranged the furniture, painted a couple rooms, turned her home office into a proper workshop for side projects, got a dog, a German Shepherd named Diesel, who's better company than Andrea ever was. The shop is doing better than ever. Turns out all those late nights I'd been faking, I actually started using them for real work after Andrea moved out. Took on some big contracts with trucking companies, expanded services, hired another mechanic. Revenue is up 40% from this time last year. My rental properties are both cash flow positive, tenants are reliable, haven't had any major issues. The housing market keeps going up, so those investments keep appreciating. All money that stays in my pocket instead of being split with an unfaithful ex-wife. Started dating again recently. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice to meet people who are actually honest about what they want. Amazing how much simpler things are when you're dealing with straightforward communication instead of lies and manipulation. Travis still thinks the whole thing was the most brilliant strategy he's ever seen. His words: "You got her to voluntarily file for divorce because she thought she'd win, then destroyed her case with evidence of her own cheating. Most guys would have confronted their wife, had a big blowout, then gotten screwed in divorce court anyway. You played chess while she was playing checkers. The only downside is losing 7 years to someone who wasn't worth it, but you can't get time back, so no point dwelling on it. All you can do is learn the lesson and move forward." The lesson for anyone reading this who suspects their spouse is cheating: protect yourself first. Document everything. Don't confront until you have a plan. And if you live in a state with prenups and separate property laws, use them. My dad's mistake with his divorce taught me to protect my assets. Andrea's mistake was thinking I'd be an easy target. She wanted to catch me cheating so she could justify her own affair and take half of everything I'd worked for. Instead, she got caught, got exposed, and walked away with nothing but a failed marriage and a tarnished reputation. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting someone hang themselves with the rope they braided specifically for you. Some people might think what I did was wrong, that I manipulated Andrea by making her think I was unfaithful. Here's my response to that. She was already unfaithful. She was already planning to divorce me. She was already trying to take assets that were never hers. All I did was control the timing and make sure the truth came out in a way that protected me. If Andrea had been honest, if she'd come to me and said she wanted a divorce, we could have handled it quietly and fairly. Instead, she chose deception. She chose to have an affair while pretending everything was fine. She chose to file for divorce with false accusations about my faithfulness. I simply responded to her chess moves with better chess moves. Nothing illegal, nothing unethical. Just strategic thinking and patience. The night the divorce was finalized, I took Diesel for a long walk around my neighborhood. My neighborhood, in my house, that I'd bought with money I'd earned before Andrea was even in my life. The moon was bright, the air was cool, and I felt more at peace than I had in years. Got a text from Andrea that night. One last desperate attempt at communication. "I know you made me think you were cheating. That was cruel. We could have worked things out if you'd just been honest." I stared at that message for a solid minute. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. She'd been lying to me for months, sleeping with another woman's husband, spending our money on hotels for her affair, and I was cruel for creating a fake affair to protect myself? Deleted the message without responding. Blocked her number. Some people never accept responsibility for their actions, always finding someone else to blame. Andrea was one of those people, and her problems weren't mine anymore. These days, life is straightforward. Wake up, work on trucks, come home to my dog, work on personal projects, hang out with real friends, build my business and my future. No drama, no lies, no wondering if the person sleeping next to me is faithful. The shop keeps me busy in the best way. This morning, I diagnosed a transmission issue on a Mack truck that 3 other shops had failed to fix properly. Customer was ecstatic. Said he'd recommend us to everyone he knew. That's the kind of reputation you build with honest work and attention to detail. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.